imagine that? A tiny 17-minute movie that was so important, it literally laid the groundwork for the biggest film industry on the entire planet. Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today, the incredible story of Hollywood's very first film. So let me just start by asking you a question. When you think of Hollywood, I mean, you picture the blockbusters, the giant studios, the Walk of Fame, right? But all of that had to start somewhere. It all started with just one movie. Any idea what it was?
And there it is. The answer is In Old California, a short, silent movie from way back in 1910. Now, you gotta remember, this was filmed long before that famous Hollywood sign was ever a thing, long before the massive studio system we know today was even a dream. This is the little film that started the whole shebang. So, what was it even like back then? I mean, forget everything you know about grand premieres and red carpets. This was an incredibly humble, almost experimental beginning, all happening in a sleepy little town that was, about to change the world forever. So officially, In Old California was a silent Western, and it was directed by the legendary D.W. Griffith. But its real claim to fame wasn't the plot or the acting, it was the location. This was, for the record, the very first motion picture ever shot in Hollywood. Period.
And just to put that into perspective for you, the first public movies had only been screened about 15 years earlier. We were still a whole 17 years away from actually hearing an actor's voice in a film, with the jazz singer. This movie was truly made in the wild, inventive, anything-goes dawn of cinema. Okay, so beyond being a great trivia answer, what really makes this century-old film so special? Why should we even care about it today? Well, it turns out it has this unique cinematic charm that's all its own. Critics and historians usually point to 4 key things that still work surprisingly well. First, obviously, its historical significance is just off the charts. But it's also a masterclass in pure visual storytelling. It has this incredibly authentic atmosphere, and it perfectly captures that exciting, let's-try-anything experimental era of filmmaking. Think about it. D.W. Griffith didn't have sound. He couldn't rely on dialogue. So he had to use the world around him to tell the story. The real California mission setting, those rustic costumes, the wide-open outdoor locations, all of it had to work together to build a sense of place using nothing but visuals. And wow, does that create a powerful effect. As one reviewer so perfectly put it, watching this film today is like witnessing the birth of Hollywood itself. It's not just a movie, it's a time capsule. You're literally watching the exact moment a global capital of entertainment was accidentally being born. But, of course, a film from 1910 is going to have some things that feel, well, let's just say a little strange to us today. So let's be honest and look at how it holds up, and maybe where it shows its age a little bit. This comparison is just fascinating, right? Back then, storytelling was a totally different beast. You had this big, super melodramatic acting because, well, you had to get the emotion across without any words. The pacing was way, way slower, and the stories? Super clear moralistic tone. Good guys were heroes, bad guys were villains, end of story. It is a completely different universe from the nuanced, super fast-paced, and morally gray stories we love today. And yeah, that's the crucial thing, the acting. If you sit down to watch it now, the performances can feel really exaggerated, totally over the top. But that was the technique. It was an absolutely necessary tool for silent film actors. It was how they made sure the audience understood every single feeling and motivation without a single line of dialogue. So, after all that, where do we land? Is In Old California this priceless artifact that everyone should see, or is it just some dusty old relic from the past? All right, it's time for the final verdict. When you really break it down, it looks something like this. Its historical value, it's priceless. There's just nothing else like it. But as pure entertainment for a modern audience, it's pretty simple. And as a piece of cinematic craft, it's absolutely foundational. I mean, it is the blueprint for basically everything that came after it. Maybe the single best way to sum up this film is with this quote. It is historically priceless, cinematically simple. That one line just perfectly captures its two sides, doesn't it? It's a vital piece of our cultural history, even if it's not going to have you on the edge of your seat. So the official rating it received was a 7.5 out of 10. And look, that might sound a little high for a cinematically simple film, but that score is heavily weighted by its incredible, one-of-a-kind historical importance. It's a rating that gives it respect for its place in history. So, the big takeaway here is this. In Old California is an absolutely essential artifact. Watching it isn't really about getting modern thrills or spectacle. It's about seeing that one small, dusty seed from which the entire giant forest of Hollywood eventually grew. And that just leaves me with one final thought to ponder. Hollywood's very first story was a simple Western, all about conflict and love on a new frontier. Over a century later, what do you think its final story, its very last film, will be about?